Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Samantha Becotte, and I have the honor of serving as the president of the Saskatchewan Teachers Federation. I'm joining you here today on Treaty 6 territory in the traditional lands of the Métis. And I just want to thank everyone for joining with us to hear our statement in response to the announcement this morning. So this morning, it was announced that a multi-year funding agreement had been reached between the government of Saskatchewan and the Saskatchewan School Boards Association. We're disappointed that the minister continues to search for ways to delay the dispute and avoid making meaningful commitments with teachers to ensure that students are well supported in classrooms across the province. From information that we had received, this deal was presented to school board trustees, and they were only provided 24 hours to consider whether they would endorse the agreement or not. Given the experience of boards over the last 15 years, it is disappointing that the SSBA leadership signed this agreement, but we're not surprised. School boards had their autonomy stripped by this government in 2009 when they removed boards' ability to raise revenue through their local levy. And in 2015, local school boards' existence was threatened as government contemplated removing local school boards or amalgamating to a handful that would represent large areas of the province. And we've also seen the consequences to local school divisions and their funding following local trustees speaking out publicly about the decisions of this government. It seems that government and SSBA leadership painted a picture to local trustees that gave them no other option but to accept this backdoor agreement. The minister has repeated that the best deals happen at the bargaining table, and we agree. But his words and his actions don't align because that minister continues to offer agreements away from the bargaining table. The STF is prepared to return to the bargaining table if government is willing to present their agreement, including providing assurances that boards of education cannot use these new funds for any other uses other than student supports. This is what we consider as restricted funds. And in education, there are restricted and unrestricted. And when funds are restricted, it means that divisions cannot use those funds for anything other than what their intended purpose is. Unrestricted funds, as is in the current multi-year funding agreement, means that school divisions could use those funds for anything, such as servicing debt or capital projects or hiring additional superintendents. We need to know that funds will be restricted so that they are going to address class size and class complexity. We also need to include a reporting mechanism so that there is transparency around these divisions and their decisions with the funding. The funding has no increases in the current agreement with school divisions, so we would want to see a tie of funding to increases in enrollment and inflation rather than remaining flat. The Premier has talked at length about the growth in this province and the hopes to see that population continue to grow. And as our population grows, the people coming to this province are going to bring children with them. And we want to make sure that their needs are supported as well. We also need to ensure that funding is not subject to appropriation, as the current MOU states. So that means that if the funding were not subject to appropriation, it would not be able to be reduced in future years. Regardless of what the political context is in Saskatchewan, we need to know that our students' needs are going to be a priority. We also would suggest adjusting the term of the MOU to align with our collective agreement. So right today, we are encouraging the Minister of Education to bring an amended version of this MOU to the table where bargaining can happen, and we can put it into the contract. Sanctions can end, and we can get a deal. We want to ensure our students are supported in our classrooms, and they deserve to know that those supports will be there in a long term. So thank you for joining me. Alec?
Hey, Samantha. So
Hi.
you cut out just a little bit there. Can you explain a little bit more clearly the path, excuse me, the path back to the bargaining table? You said including the MOU as part of the CBA, and what about this funding? Because the connection was a little bit wonky, I just want to try and get it very clearly what the path back to the bargaining table is so that we can all move on from there.
Sure. So the path back to the bargaining table would be the Minister of Education provides a renewed mandate to the GTBC that includes an amended version of this MOU and an amended version that addresses those 4 points that we talked about. We're ready to get to a solution. We're ready for the dispute to end, but we need government ready to make those commitments.
And with respect to the funding, the 4-year agreement, it really does look like it's 45.6 million additional dollars. Of course, in the grand scheme of things, the 356.6 million dollars over those 4 years, 4.45.6 million increase to what's there present. Is that sufficient? Is that in your mind enough? I mean, it's a guarantee certainly, but is that enough to address the issues that you've identified within complexity and composition?
Well, unfortunately, we've been talking about a $400 million gap within education. So this would be a start, but we never expected to address all of the issues at the beginning. And so this would be a path forward where we could start addressing issues in a more meaningful way and start to provide students with the timely access that they need. It's not going to be perfect, but we never expected any solution that we came to through this process to be perfect, but it's something that we can build on going forward.
And last thing here, you said that trustees had 24 hours to consider this. Where have you heard that from? And if you can share a little bit more about that, that'd be appreciated.
Well, we have communications with local trustees, and some of them have shared with us what that timeline looked like and when they were presented with the MOU, and at the point of time where they needed to agree to it is where they said that there was only about a 24-hour window where they had the opportunity to consider and make a decision.
Okay, thank you. That's all for me for right now.
Thanks. Thanks, Alec. Susan?
Hi, can you hear me?
I can, yeah.
Okay. It seems like the province is going to somewhat great lengths to keep this out of the collective bargaining agreement. Can you kind of say what the impacts of that are? Like, why is it so beneficial for you guys to have it in, and why might the province not want it in there?
Well, for teachers, it means that we have conditions within our collective agreement that address, or articles within our collective agreement that address our working conditions. And that has been a priority for teachers because year after year, this government is making political decisions about underfunding and under-resourcing our schools, which does leave teachers to carry the burden of the gaps that have been created. And teachers cannot continue trying to fill those gaps because they're burning out. They can't be everything for everyone with growing class sizes and increasing needs with students, and yet fewer supports to help them in delivering that high quality education. So having it in the collective agreement is important because there is a dispute resolution process, and that dispute resolution process would go through the Education Relations Board, and we would be able to come to a quick resolution to any issue within that agreement, and any party to the agreement can initiate that dispute resolution. So for us, it would be if government didn't provide the funding, or if school boards weren't allocating the resources to classrooms, or if they weren't reporting where they were allocating their resources to. So to us, the collective agreement ensures that every party has to agree if anything were to be changed, as well that dispute resolution process to ensure accountability over the longer period of time.
Okay, one quick follow-up question. It seems to me that it's kind of unusual for you guys to have this as an active bargaining point, and then the province goes and makes a deal with the school boards. Does that give you or change the amount of faith that you have in the province and the continued negotiations?
Well, teachers have experienced shortfalls in education, and they have lost trust in government through a number of decisions that have been made over the last decade. We have been talking about this issue in the last 2 rounds of bargaining as well, and saying that it needs to be addressed. And we've been told by government and SSBA that we'll make a committee and then we'll have recommendations and we'll be able to move forward. Well, Now our Minister of Education is saying those recommendations aren't purposeful, and really the committees were a waste of time, which is what teachers had predicted and were concerned about at the beginning of that process. So to see government continue to sidestep the bargaining process and continue to avoid the fact that this is a significant issue for teachers that needs to be addressed does cause a great deal of concern amongst teachers in the province.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. I should add to that too, sorry, it doesn't just cause concern for teachers within the province. There are parents and students who are seeing this happen. I mean, we were in the legislature on Thursday, and there were a number of classes there who were witnessing the actions of this government and their refusal to make students a priority and education a priority. This shouldn't be a huge deal. This is not revolutionary, but what we're looking for are meaningful commitments to ensure students are supported. And I think that not just teachers know that that's necessary, but parents and students know that that's necessary to ensure their success in schools as well. Keenan? Oh, sorry. Alexander?
Hi, Samantha. I guess this is kind of a side deal that happened without the STF's kind of input. How does it make negotiations easier or harder? What does it do for the STF when this deal gets announced Friday morning?
Well, it is definitely disappointing, but it isn't new to teachers that government is disrespecting our bargaining process. I mean, we saw billboards come up across the province vilifying teachers and painting them as greedy as early as July. And they were planning those in June before they had even presented their proposals at the table. And we've seen multiple rounds of billboards as well as radio campaigns, again, painting teachers and the teachers union as these villains. We are all teachers. We're all fighting for our students, and the lengths that government is going to avoid that, including having these side deals, is not a surprise, but definitely disappointing. It's disrespectful. It's disingenuous to the process, and it's very frustrating. I mean, we were offered an MOU from the Ministry of Education that excluded SSBA, and that was one of the concerns that we raised, was that funding from Ministry of Education is not coming to the Teachers Federation. We've never asked for that. Funding would always go to the school boards, but we need a way to keep school boards accountable in addition to keeping government accountable to the funding.
Another follow-up for me. I guess my question for you is, you've been pretty clear previously that you want the issues of class complexity and class size to be addressed in a new contract. Now you're kind of saying the MOU, you want the government to present a modified MOU that was signed, announced to be signed today. Is there a disconnect between that, or how are you kind of doing that? I guess, how do you reconcile those two kind of points?
Well, just because there's an agreement that is between the Ministry of Education and the SSBA doesn't prevent an agreement to happen within the collective bargaining process. So if they're willing to make agreements outside of bargaining, to me, the only reason why they would do that and not put it into the collective agreement is that they either don't want to include teachers, which I don't believe to be true because they have offered us a similar MOU, but that they don't want to be held accountable to providing that in a long-term sustainable way. They want to have an exit strategy from that funding. And unfortunately, as we said, our students' needs aren't going to go away. We want to know that funding is going to be there, that personnel can be hired, that professionals can be hired, and have contracts so that they either are supported, they can establish themselves within a community, and they can build those relationships in a long period of time as well. That supports students.
Does this change the planned job action for next week that was announced this morning?
Well, if government were to communicate to us that they would be willing to put an amended article from this MOU into our collective agreement, then we would pause our sanction actions that we have announced for next week, and we could return to the bargaining table. We want to get an agreement. We are looking for ways, constantly looking for ways, and providing many opportunities for government to come to the table and engage in conversations around class size and class complexity. They're refusing to do that. And so then we have been forced to take these additional actions. We don't want to have that happen. We want students to be able to be getting a high quality education where they are well supported, and also being able to engage in those extracurricular opportunities that are happening within their school community. So I would welcome a call from the GTBC or from the Minister of Education to say that they were willing to put this amended into our contract, and we could get back to the table and we could find a resolution to this process.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sean?
Hi, hope you're doing well, and I'm going to try and keep this quick because I want to give time for my colleagues in Saskatchewan. This kind of a bit more national. I know smaller class sizes, class complexity have been a big aspect here. I'm kind of looking at this interesting study that recently came out. Mind it's from China and Japan, not Canada, but it kind of is saying small class sizes are not better for pupil grades or what they say is resilience. From your perspective, though, like, why do you feel small class sizes are such a needed aspect in schools? Like, why, why this is such a kind of key aspect to this fight here?
So we haven't actually proposed small class sizes. What we've put forward are reasonable class sizes, and we need smaller class sizes because our classes here in Saskatchewan are growing to a point where they are unmanageable. Even if all of the students were learning the exact same curriculum and were learning it at the exact same level, and their learning style was all exactly the same, and they all had the same needs. We have classrooms that are over 40, and it is unsustainable. And without additional support, I mean, even with additional support, teachers don't have the ability to build that one-on-one connection with students. I mean, even high school classes shouldn't be lecture style classes, and that's essentially the only way to get through the curriculum in some of these instances. So what we're looking for in Saskatchewan is to have our students supported. So that might mean smaller classes. It doesn't mean small from what I would say, but it means that we might also have fewer split grade or multi-curricular classes. We would have the timely access to the supports that students need. And that supports them in their education. If a student needs help in reading and there's no additional support and the teacher has 35 grade 1s in their classroom, it's nearly impossible for that teacher to provide the one-on-one support with that individual student. And we need students to have those needs met. We need them to learn the curriculum. We need to learn those essential skills and be successful, not just in their pre-K to 12 education, but beyond. And that's not what's happening here in Saskatchewan.
And just a quick follow-up, I guess, is there anything else in particular, aside from just reducing class sizes, that could really help benefit classrooms? You just mentioned the aspect of, just by reducing even a bit, it gives teachers the ability to provide more assistance to students who need that extra help.
So yeah, when we have brought this forward, it is class size and complexity, but really complexity is the overarching term that we would use to describe the challenges that students and teachers face in our classrooms. We have more complex classrooms, which means that not only do we have more students in our classes, those students have more needs than they did in the past. And we have fewer and fewer professional supports in order to support those needs. So whether it's mental health counseling or speech language pathology, occupational therapy, psychologists, we have fewer supports to be able to access or to meet those needs here in Saskatchewan. So a lot of that then falls on the teacher, or students just end up struggling waiting on or left waiting on wait lists. So when we talk about classroom complexity, I mean, class size is a piece of it, but it is definitely not the biggest piece of it. We have a variety of issues that are impacting teachers' ability to deliver a high quality education to every individual here in Saskatchewan.
Thanks so much. That's it for me.
Thank you. Is it Sasha?
Yes, Samantha. So, what's your impression that the government signed with the school divisions, but you weren't included during the negotiation?
Oh, well, we're definitely disappointed that teachers weren't included. They play a vital role in this decision-making process. Teachers are the people who work with students day in and day out. They understand the needs of their classroom and the needs of their school and the needs of the community of schools which they serve. And so without that teacher voice and ensuring that teacher voice is part of the decision-making process, not to say we're making all the decisions, but part of the process, means that it's missing a critical piece to ensure that students are going to get the supports that they need.
Perfect. And yesterday in a press conference, Premier Mo said that students and teachers should be in class where they belong. So what's your response?
Well, students and teachers are in class, and we would love to be in classes that are well supported and well resourced so that, like I said, teachers can deliver that high quality education that every child across Saskatchewan not only deserves, but has a right to. And the decisions of this government have put teachers and students in situations that are impossible to deliver that high quality education. It is unfortunate to see year after year students not getting their needs met and waiting 2 or 3 years to get some of the specialized services that they need. We don't want to see that happen for any child across Saskatchewan. And so we need to know that there's going to be improved funding and a long-term commitment so that it doesn't just come and go within election cycles. Keenan?
Sorry about that before. I hit every button but unmute.
Okay.
I'm just wondering if you feel, you mentioned your reasons before about why the School Boards Association ultimately signed the agreement, but I'm just wondering if you feel betrayed by or any resentment towards the School Boards Association for ultimately signing that deal and putting you in this position.
Yeah, I mean, we have frustration with the government that they have been going to such great lengths to avoid putting this into the provincial agreement. But the provincial leadership of the Saskatchewan School Boards Association sits as partners with the government as representatives at the bargaining table. It's the government trustee bargaining team. And so I get that there's an alignment there, but at the same time, they have been asking for these things for several years as well. And they need to have the students at the forefront of their decision making. And nothing that we have proposed puts local school boards' autonomy in jeopardy. And that seems to be the picture that has been painted for many of the school boards and local trustees across the province, and it's definitely misleading. So there's frustration with the government, but also there is frustration with the provincial leadership of the SSBA because they're misleading the facts for their membership as well. And I don't think that they're accurately representing what local trustees are wanting to see.
You mentioned before about they had about 24 hours to mull over the deal. Do you feel if they had a longer period of time that it wouldn't have gone this way? Just how much did that 24-hour time period play into this, do you think?
Well, I mean, my best decisions and the most important decisions I don't make in 24 hours in a 24-hour period. And so we want to make sure that there are thoughtful and considerate deliberations that are occurring, allowing discourse to happen. If there is discourse around decisions, that can happen within a 24-hour period of time. I mean, to get a full picture of just the numbers that are included within some of the funding allocation, I don't think that you could accurately research and understand some of those allocations within that 24-hour period of time and know how it's going to impact your local division. So I think that it did contribute to it, but it also ensured that there wasn't an opportunity for discourse to occur. And there might have been more discourse if they had a longer period of time.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That's all for me.
Thanks, Keenan. Stephen?
Hi, thanks. Some of the okay. You guys can hear me? Okay.
Oh, you're good. Yeah.
So some school divisions, for example, Southeast Cornerstone has gone on record as saying that the announcement that was originally made by the Premier on Wednesday may not necessarily be enough to cover the shortfalls that they are getting anyway. And then hearing that this amount's actually going to be earmarked for something else, does that raise concerns for you in that there doesn't appear to actually be any additional funding being provided in this $356 million?
Yeah, we have seen time and time again this government announce and re-announce new funds. I think that's part of their strategy with the ad hoc funding, is that they get to re-announce funds that they had once allocated. And we had raised that concern as well. We knew that what was being announced by the Premier was not going to be sufficient. It was going to be a start, but like I said, we need to know that that funding is going to be there for a longer period of time. So while it is a good start, without a long-term commitment, we fully expect that any funds that are provided this year are just going to be clawed back.
Thanks.
Thank you. Alec?
Hey, yeah, sorry, not to be a complete and total pedant here, but the MOU that you're referring to, is that the multi-year financial agreement, or is that the MOU that Minister Cockrell proposed in mid-February?
No, I mean, we can call it lots of different things, but yes, I'm referring, when I talk about the MOU, I'm talking about the multi-year funding agreement.
Okay, gotcha. That's it. Just wanted to clear that up. Cheers.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for clarifying. And Stephen, are you good? Okay, and I know, Sasha, you said you had a question for Angela?
Yes.
So we have Angela
Question.
Banda, our Associate Executive Director, I believe, is on the line and can answer in French.
Perfect.
There she is.
Ici, Sacha.
Parfait. Donc, tout d'abord, bonjour Angela. Comment est-ce que vous vous sentez de ne pas avoir été inclus lors des négociations avant d'arriver à l'entente entre le gouvernement et le syndicat?
C'est malheureux. C'est malheureux que les jeux politiques continuent et que la proposition dont le premier ministre a affaire, que ça n'a pas été proposé à table lors des négociations ou une affaire à discuter à table. Quand même, on est prêt, comme la présidente vient de dire, de discuter. Si cette proposition a quelques changements, on est prêt à retourner à table. Mais il faut absolument que le GTBC, l'équipe de négociation, reçoive un mandat pour mettre cette proposition dans le contrat. Encore, c'est malheureux que les jeux politiques continuent, mais en même temps, on est prêt à retourner à table avec quelques changements à la proposition.
Et quels seraient ces changements-là, d'après vous, pour retourner dans l'étape de négociation?
Ben, tout d'abord, il faut que ça soit lié au contrat. Point final, pour qu'on puisse avoir une garantie quelconque au niveau des fonds à long terme. Il y a certains détails aussi qui existent, alors on aimerait bien discuter et avoir, comme la présidente vient de dire, certains petits changements, mais les changements très importants. Premièrement, par exemple, que ces fonds soient restreints uniquement, c'est-à-dire uniquement des fonds pour le soutien des élèves en salle de classe. Alors, avec de petites choses et une garantie que ça pourrait être dans le contrat, ça serait très intéressant pour les enseignants.
Je vous remercie, Angela.
Je vous en prie.
Garo?
Thank you very much. I'm going to ask my question in French too. Donc, merci Madame Banda pour être là. On voit que ces dernières semaines, quand même, les annonces se multipliaient de la part de gouvernements. Je cite notamment mercredi ce que annonçait Scatmo et après, aujourd'hui, il y a une entente. Et avec chaque annonce, on peut dire qu'il y a une volonté de négociation. Mais votre réponse reste quand même solide. Vous refusez chaque fois de retourner à la table de négociation. Est-ce que vous craignez à un moment donné de perdre le soutien de la population avec cette chaîne d'annonces?
Pour commencer, il faut absolument souligner que les annonces qu'on entend au fur et à mesure sont grâce aux enseignants qui font le gros du travail pour avoir de financement à long terme en éducation publique. Alors, ça, c'est grâce à nos membres et au public, c'est-à-dire les familles, même les élèves, qui poussent pour avoir un avenir avec un bon système d'éducation. Alors, c'est sûr que plus qu'on continue avec des pressions, plus il y a la possibilité de toucher directement aux élèves et de toucher aux familles. Mais encore, tout ce qu'on entend de nos membres, du public, des familles, c'est qu'ils veulent avoir un engagement qui est garanti pour nous assurer qu'il y aura des fonds nécessaires, le financement nécessaire dans un contrat où on sait qu'on aura des soutiens nécessaires pour nos élèves en salle de classe.
Alors, est-ce que, madame, vous appelez aujourd'hui le gouvernement de mettre cette entente dans la convention collective pour avancer avec les négociations? Est-ce qu'on peut dire ça?
Ben, effectivement, encore une fois, on cherche certains changements, mais les enseignants trouveraient assez intéressant si on retourne à table pour discuter de cette proposition, s'il y a le mandat de le mettre dans un contrat.
Merci beaucoup, madame Banda.
Je vous en prie.
Thank you, Angela. Again, our Associate Executive Director for Labor Relations. Always happy to have you and provide that support en français. Again, I got called out for saying a little French last time I did it on here, so I'm going to leave it at that. But thank you for that support. There was a question in the chat as well. So at 356.6 per year for 4 years, and the Premier's announcement of an increase of funding of $180 million, does that mean that $176 million would need to be taken from existing budget total, or is my math correct? So that $356 million is total funding that is being committed for classroom supports. And currently, in the 23-24 school year, that amount that is allocated within that area is $311,000. So the increase that they have put forward is actually only, or not thousand, sorry, million. The increase that they put forward is $45.6 million. So it's not being reallocated from the total funding that we can see. But in terms of the Premier's announcement of $180 million, again, that announcement is misleading. It's not $180 million new dollars, because they are re-announcing some of the programs that were being ran this year already. So the $40 million that came after our massive rally at the legislature in April, that's included within the $180 million total that he's announcing as new funding. So the $7 million for EAs, again, that's being re-announced as new money. The pilot projects that they've put forward is being re-announced as new money. So time and time again, this government is using the strategy of providing one-time ad hoc funds, but then re-announcing that as new money to increase the provincial education budget. And it's misleading, because even the ad hoc funding, it was needed to provide supports to operating in that current school year. And so I would definitely encourage everyone to ask the Minister of Education or ask the Premier for clarity on their numbers in terms of what is actually new money when you compare the total cost of education for the 23-24 school year to what is budgeted for the 24-25 school year. So not seeing any other hands up again, I want to thank everyone for joining us here today. And just reiterate that we can resolve this very quickly if the government would be willing to bring what they had agreed upon with the SSBA with a few amendments to the bargaining table, where we have heard the minister say that that's where the best agreements are made. We can suspend our sanctions, we can get to the table, and we can find a resolution to this process and ensure that our students are getting the supports that they need. So thank you for joining us here today, and I hope you have a great rest of your day and a great weekend.